The last human ship, the sky above Taraxis 4 was a shade of violet that no human eye was meant to see. But Commander Elias Vance had long since adapted. He leaned against the rusting bulkhead of a derelict dockyard, his boots leaving streaks in the thick red dust. Around him, alien workers scaled, feathered, furred moved with weary motions, heads bowed, their chatter kept to whispers. The occupation forces of the Renari Dominion were everywhere. Soldiers in armor that shimmered, like oil on water, stood at the corners of every street, weapons humming with cold precision. Elias wasn't supposed to be here. Humans weren't supposed to be anywhere. The Dominion's maps, spread across 100 star systems, marked one region in black, human space, quarantined, erased, forbidden. To the galaxy, humanity was gone, destroyed in the last war. A failed species. But Elias Vance lived, and so did the last weapon humanity had ever built. He carried it inside him, in memory and blood and bone. The last quantum-locked warship, a vessel, so dangerous that the Dominion never dared to face it head-on. They thought they had destroyed it. They thought they had killed everyone aboard. They were wrong. Elias's hand brushed the steel, insignia in his pocket. Horizon. That had been the ship's name. Humanity's final gamble. A vessel with engines that bent probability itself. A ship locked between quantum states so that no enemy weapon could strike it. Every shot missed. Every blow failed. Until politics, betrayal, and fire ended the war. But the Horizon had not truly died. Buried under layers of secrecy and wreckage, Elias still had its core AI key, hidden inside a case no larger than a knife. With it, the ship could awaken. With it, the galaxy could tremble again. And Elias wasn't sure if that was salvation or damnation. He wasn't alone. A voice chirped beside him, soft and melodic. "You look like a man trying to strangle his own thoughts." Elias glanced down. Kira, his only friend in this forsaken world, stood with a coil of copper feathers rippling across her scalp. Her people, the Viari, had once been proud architects of star cities. Now they were little more than indentured laborers under Dominion. Rule. Kyra's hands were stained with grease and chemical burns from the factories. Yet her eyes, large, golden, sharp, still carried fire. "I'm fine," Elias muttered. Kyra tilted her head, feathers shifting like a storm of sparks. Fine is what the broken say before they collapse. He almost smiled. Almost. The Dominion. Guards shouted nearby, herding workers toward the plaza. Another announcement. Elias's stomach tightened. Every gathering meant new decrees, new punishments, new vanishings. The Renari officer on the dais spoke in a hissing, distorted voice through his translator mask. "Citizens of Taraxis 4, production quotas remain below target. This is unacceptable. Therefore, 20 more will be chosen for relocation." Relocation. Everyone knew what that meant. Death camps disguised as work camps. The officer pointed. Random, arbitrary, cruel. One of the chosen was a child. Viari, no older than 12 in. Human years. His mother screamed, clutching him, only to be struck down with a rifle butt. Elias's hand twitched toward his hidden weapon. Rage boiled through him, but he forced himself still. One move now would doom them all. Kira grabbed his arm, sensing the storm inside him. Her voice was a whisper. "You can't save them, not yet." The words cut deeper than any blade. That night, Elias sat in the shadows of the old dockyard, staring at the stars. Somewhere up there, broken and waiting, was the Horizon, humanity's last warship. His warship. Kyra found him there, as she always did. She lowered herself onto the steel beside him, the night air filled with the scent of iron and strange alien blossoms. "Tell me," she asked softly, "do your people still live?" Elias was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, maybe. But even if they do, a galaxy thinks we're dead. Kyra's gaze lingered on him, searching. Then perhaps it is time the galaxy remembered. Elias closed his eyes. In the darkness behind them, he saw fire, fleets burning, planets falling. He saw the Horizon's engines flaring one last time, carrying him away as the rest of his crew died. Remembering, he whispered, means war. Kyra's golden eyes did not waver. Then let war come. The decision clawed at him. He had hidden for so long, surviving on scraps, burying his past. But when the Dominion dragged children away to die, when entire species lived in chains, how much longer could he wait? The Horizon was buried deep, locked inside a hidden graveyard of ships beyond the reach of scanners. If he used the AI key, if he woke it, the galaxy would burn. Again, Dot, but maybe this time, humanity would not burn alone. That night, he inserted the AI shard into his wrist console. The screen lit with a symbol he hadn't seen, years 2 wings spread wide, wrapped around a star. Voice filled the air, smooth and cold and utterly human. Commander Elias Vance. Authorization detected. Quantum core status. Dormant. Horizon awaits. Elias's chest tightened. It was real. After all these years, the ship still lived. Kyra's feathers rippled with unease at the disembodied voice. What? What is that? Elias stared at the stars. His voice was quiet, but filled with iron. That, he said, is the reason the Dominion fears humans. That is the reason they pretend we don't exist. Kyra swallowed. And what do you plan to do with it? Elias's eyes burned with a fire he had buried for too long. I'm going to remind the galaxy why they should never have forgotten. U.S. And in the silence of the alien night, the last human warship began to stir. Asterisk the awakening of Horizon. Desert wastes of Taraxis 4 stretched endless beneath a sickle moon. Elias and Kyra rode a stolen hauler, its engine coughing smoke as it carried them across dunes that glowed faintly with mineral fire. Wind howled over the empty plains, carrying the taste of iron. For 3 nights they traveled, away from the Dominion patrols, away from the eyes of collaborators. Elias had given no destination aloud, but in his chest, buried beneath scars and memories, he carried the coordinates. A graveyard, a secret tomb, the place where the Horizon had fallen. Kyra drove, her feathered crest bent flat against the storm. At last, she broke the silence. You still haven't told me what this ship is. Not truly. Elias's jaw tightened. The Horizon was more than a ship. She was the last miracle of my people. Quantum locked, probability shifted. You could fire every weapon in the galaxy, and she would still stand. Kara glanced at him, her golden eyes sharp. That sounds like a myth. A weapon no one can touch? No wonder they fear you. It wasn't a myth, Elias said quietly. It was a curse. We thought we'd end war by making it impossible to fight us. Instead, we forced the galaxy to unite against us. Kyra's hands tightened on the controls. And you want to wake this curse again? Elias didn't answer, because the truth was, he wasn't sure what he wanted. Salvation? Revenge? Or just to stop watching innocent people be taken away to die? On the 4th night, they reached the canyon. Jagged cliffs tore upward like teeth, casting black shadows across the sands. At the canyon's heart lay twisted wreckage, centuries of derelict ships dumped here by the Dominion, stripped for parts, left to rot. A graveyard of steel. Kyra parked the hauler in the shadows. Her feathers bristled with unease. It feels like a pit for the dead. It is, Elias said. His boots crunched on the dry ground as he led the way down into the wreckage. His pulse hammered. Every step brought him closer to ghosts. They passed shattered frigates, broken freighters, alien craft burned down to their bones. And then half buried. In dust and stone he saw it. The Horizon. Her hull was cracked and scorched, her once proud wings broken, her surface pitted with centuries of neglect. But even in ruin, she radiated presence. A shadow of something greater. A predator sleeping under rubble. Kyra's breath caught. By the stars, Elias's throat tightened. He reached out, pressing his palm to the scorched steel. It was cold, familiar, like touching the body of a long-lost friend. He drew out the eye shard. The small crystal glowed faintly in the dark. When he pressed it against the hull, the ground trembled. A hum filled the canyon, low, growing, resonating in. His bones. Lights flickered along the Horizon's broken spine. Faded, stuttering, then burning brighter. A voice, hollow but steady, spilled into the air. Commander Elias Vance. Authorization confirmed. Quantum systems dormant. Structural integrity, 12%. Core AI online, awaiting directives. Kyra staggered back, feathers bristling in awe. It speaks? Elias closed his eyes. He had waited years to hear this voice again. Horizon, he whispered. I'm here. But the ship was broken. He knew it instantly. Inside the shattered hull, corridors lay twisted, blackened by fire. Consoles were shattered. Power conduits hung like veins torn open. The AI's voice echoed in the silence, steady but dim. Quantum lock suspended. Probability field offline. Restoration requires power relays, memory lattice, gravitic stabilizer core. Elias's stomach sank. The list was impossible. Each component was rare, guarded, found only in Dominion military depots. Kyra's eyes darted to him. You can't be serious. To fix this, we'd have to steal from the Dominion itself. Exactly. Elias, that's suicide, and it's the only choice left. They spent hours exploring what remained. Kyra's slim frame let her crawl through collapsed passages, finding hidden compartments of half-melted machinery. Elias salvaged fragments of human steel, his hands shaking as memories returned faces. Of the crew, friends who had died aboard this vessel. In the ruined command chamber, he touched the captain's chair. His chair. Rust clung to it. The starscreens were dead, but for a moment he could almost see it alive, again the glow of displays. The hum of power, the sound of voices shouting orders as they fought against impossible odds. He remembered the last battle. Dominion fleets converging. The Horizon shifting probabilities, untouched by every shot until betrayal cut deeper than any weapon. His crew sacrificed, left behind so he could escape with the key. He could still hear their screams. Kyra's voice broke the silence. Elias, if we do this, the Dominion will know. They'll come for us. They'll come anyway, Elias muttered. They always come. They camped in the shadow of the Horizon at night. The ship's faint hum pulsed like a heartbeat, as though it were listening. Watching. Kyra stared into the fire, her feathers glowing in the flame's reflection. I don't understand humans, she whispered. Every other species, when beaten, they kneel. They adapt. But you lose everything, and still you rise again. Why? Elias's eyes stayed fixed on the broken warship. Because kneeling means forgetting who we are. And if we forget, then we're truly dead. Kyra studied him, golden eyes fierce. Then she nodded once. Then I will rise with you. The fire cracked. The Horizon's faint hum deepened, as though in approval. But far above, in orbit, the Dominion was watching. The ship graveyard had been flagged long ago. The moment Horizon systems stirred, a sensor beacon hidden in the cliffs activated. On a Dominion battleship high in orbit, an officer hissed as alarms blared. Unauthorized quantum signature detected. Sector graveyard. Possible human artifact. The report was sent at once. Across the stars, the Dominion's high command stirred. Whispers spread. Fear. Urgency. The last human warship was waking. Elias didn't know the alarm had been triggered. He only knew the horizon was broken, and that to repair her, he would have to risk everything. As dawn broke, painting the cliffs in blood-red light, he stood before the shattered warship, Kyra at his side. His fists clenched. Tomorrow, he said, we steal from the Dominion. Kyra's feathers rippled in grim resolve. Then tomorrow we die, or we change the galaxy. And deep within the horizon, the AI's voice whispered like an omen. Probability divergence detected. Outcomes unstable. Commander, choose wisely. The theft. The Dominion supply depot rose like a fortress of glass and steel from the red. Planes of Taraxis 4, floodlights swept the perimeter. Gun turrets rotated on towers. Patrol drones drifted through the night air, their wings humming like metal hornets. From the shadows of a crumbling ridge, Elias studied it through a cracked scope. His breath came slow, steady. Years of hiding had dulled his muscles, but not his instincts. Once he had led squads into firestorms. Tonight he had only Kyra. Beside him, Vayari adjusted the strap of her satchel. Her golden eyes gleamed faintly in the dark. Tell me again why we're not running in the opposite direction. Because, Elias muttered, the horizon needs a gravitic stabilizer core, and the only one within 50 systems is inside. That depot, Kyra exhaled sharply. You humans are mad. You see death and you walk toward it. Elias allowed the corner of his mouth to twitch. That's how we survived as long as we did. They moved under cover of darkness. The depot walls shimmered with energy shielding, an almost invisible shimmer in the night. Elias found the gap he remembered. A maintenance conduit, narrow, half-buried under stone. Dominion guards ignored it, because no Renari would crawl through. Filth when the penalty for trespassing was execution. But Elias had never cared much for clean clothes. The passage stank of oil and dust. They crawled on hands and knees, metal scraping their skin. At one point, Kira hissed when the conduit tightened around her shoulders. Elias pulled her through, his calloused hands gripping hers until she broke free into the shadow of the depot's outer ring. The hum of machines surrounded them now. Cargo loaders moved crates along rails. Alien soldiers barked orders. Kyra pressed close to him, whispering. Where would they keep something as rare as a stabilizer? Elias's eyes swept the structures. Central vault, lower levels. Wheel. Need an access key, which we don't have. He pulled a small device from his belt, a human relic, scratched and battered. That's what this is for. Kyra's feathers flared slightly. You really came prepared for everything, didn't you? Elias didn't answer. He just led her deeper into the depot. They ducked into shadows, weaving between the trolls. Elias moved like a ghost, always one step before the searchlights. Kyra followed, her movements fluid, almost predatory. They slipped inside a service door, bypassing a Dominion officer with a swipe of Elias's device. The vault levels were colder, dimmer, security tighter. Through a grated floor, they saw rows of crates filled with advanced tech, weapons, power, cores, alien alloys glowing faintly with inner light. At the center of the chamber, sealed inside a transparent field, sat the gravitic stabilizer, core and orb of black metal suspended in magnetic stasis. Energy rippled across its surface, like liquid Kyra's breath caught. That little thing will wake your ship? It'll let her stand again, Elias whispered. Then let's steal it and run. Elias studied the guards, 6 of them, fully armed, plus drones hovering near the ceiling. Direct assault meant suicide. Instead, Elias pulled from his satchel a tiny sphere, No bigger than a coin. Human-made. Rare. He rolled it across the ray. Floor dot, it clicked once. Twice. Then emitted a pulse. Every light in the chamber flickered. The drones froze, systems glitching. Guards spun, shouting in confusion. Elias and Kyra dropped through the grate like shadows. They hit the floor hard. Elias's knees ached, but he moved fast, pulling a knife across the throat of the nearest. Guard before the alien could cry out. Kyra lashed out with her claws, slashing another's arm and sending his rifle clattering. The Dominion shouted in panic, firing blindly into the flickering dark. Elias sprinted for the stabilizer field, pulling the human device from his belt again. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't clean. But when he slammed it against the control panel, sparks flew and the containment shield dropped. The stabilizer core hummed, heavy, pulsing with gravity itself. Elias grabbed it, muscles screaming as the weight nearly crushed him. Kyra rushed to help, her slender arms bracing his. "Move!" she cried. Together they staggered toward the exit, but the blackout pulse had ended. Drones whirred back to life, their red sensors locking on. Blaster fire ripped the air. Metal hissed and melted where bolts struck. Elias and Kyra dove behind crates, the stabilizer between them. Kyra's feathers flared in panic. "We'll never get out alive." Elias pulled a grenade from his pouch, thumb rushing the worn trigger. "We'll make them think otherwise." The explosion tore the chamber apart. Crates shattered. Guards screamed. Smoke and fire filled the vault. In the chaos, Elias and Kyra dragged the stabilizer into the service tunnel, coughing, blinded. Alarms screamed. The depot roared awake. They ran, up ladders, through ducts, across steel catwalks as lights blazed crimson. Dominion voices thundered through speakers. Intruders detected. Human signature confirmed. All units converge. Kyra's heart hammered. So loud Elias swore he could hear it. They burst onto the outer ring, a night air cold against sweat. Floodlights locked on. Drones swarmed. Soldiers shouted. Weapons raised dot, and then the sky lit up dot far above. Orbiting in blackness, a Dominion cruiser had received the alarm. Its commander sneered as he studied the readings. Human technology, a stabilizer core, and something worse, a faint quantum signature from the canyon. The order was given instantly. Fire on the planet. Eliminate the source. On the ground, Elias and Kyra scrambled toward the maintenance conduit. The stabilizer dragged like lead between them. Blaster fire cut the air around their heads. Kyra stumbled, feathers scorched by a near miss. Elias hauled her forward, his lungs burning. They dove into the conduit just as the first orbital bombardment struck. The world shook. Fire ripped across the depot, consuming soldiers and steel alike. The blast wave hurled Elias and Kyra through this tunnel, smashing them against the walls. Heat seared their skin. The depot above was annihilated. But Dominion eyes were not on the depot anymore. They were on the canyon. On the horizon asterisk, Elias dragged himself from the conduit, blood in his mouth, stabilizer still clutched in his arms. Kyra crawled beside him, feathers scorched but alive. They had survived. They had stolen what they needed. But as the night sky burned with the fire of orbital cannons, Elias realized the truth. The Dominion now knew. They knew the last human warship was stirring, and they were coming. Asterisk. The first strike, the canyon roared with fire. Red dust rained from the cliffs as orbital cannons thundered overhead. Every impact shook the ground like the heartbeat of a dying god. Elias and Kyra staggered through the graveyard of ships, dragging the stolen gravitic stabilizer between them. Above, streaks of plasma burned across the violet sky. The Dominion was not holding back. They meant to erase everything in the canyon wreckage, ruins, and most of all, the horizon. Elias's voice was raw as he shouted over the thunder. "Move! We don't have time." Kyra's feathers were slick with blood from a gash across her temple, but her golden eyes burned with resolve. "If your ship doesn't wake now, we die here." They reached the shattered warship. The horizon loomed above them, broken but stirring, faint blue lights flickering weakly along her spine. The AI's voice crackled through Elias's wrist console. "Commander, threat analysis, orbital saturation fire. Survival probability, 0 without stabilization." "Then let's stabilize you," Elias growled. They climbed into the ruined hull, metal groaning under each step. The once proud corridors were blackened husks, smelling of ash and rust. They forced their way into the core chamber, where power conduits hung like torn arteries. Elias slammed the stabilizer into its cradle. The chamber pulsed. Energy surged through the horizon, like a heartbeat awakening after centuries. The AI's voice grew steadier. Gravitic core online. Quantum lock recalibrating. Probability lattice engaging. The ground shook again. Dust cascaded from the ceiling. Outside, another orbital blast struck, a white firestorm tearing a nearby cliff apart. Kyra clutched A console, her feathers bristling. "Elias, the whole canyon will collapse." Elias gritted his teeth. "Horizon, lock us." For a breathless moment, nothing happened. Then the world shifted. The roar of fire muted. The tremors stilled. Elias felt a pressure, strange and unnatural, ripple through his bones. It was as though reality itself had twisted sideways. The horizon shimmered. The walls flickered, as if existing in more than one state at once. Outside, orbital blasts struck again, only to bend, twist, and miss. Plasma fire lanced down, but at the last instant trajectories altered. Beams that should have vaporized the canyon veered into empty ground. The horizon stood untouched. Kyra's eyes widened in awe. "It's impossible." Elias's chest heaved. Sweat streamed down his face, but his lips curved in a grim smile. "No, it's human." The AI's voice was steady now, clear and sharp as a blade. Quantum lock re-established. Horizon operational at 23% capacity. Weapon systems offline, engines offline. Shields reconfigured. Kyra frowned. 23%? That doesn't sound like much. Elias shook his head. "It's enough. Enough to show them what we are." The Dominion fleet above continued its barrage. The cruiser's commander snarled as every strike failed to land. His officers hissed in confusion. Direct hits. Diverted. Probability fluctuations. Off the scale. The commander's throat pulsed with rage. It is true. The human warship lives. He bared his fangs, issuing the order. Deploy strike wings. Crush it before it fully awakens. The first wave came fast. Sleek Dominion gunships dove through. The clouds, their engines screaming, weapons spitting fire. Dozens of them, black shapes blotting the violet sky. Elias and Kyra raced for the bridge chamber, the deck rumbling under their feet. The horizon's lights flared brighter with every second. The doors hissed open. The bridge lay in ruin, consoles shattered, glass cracked, but the central chair still stood. His chair. Elias lowered himself into it. For the first time in years, it felt right. Like coming home. "Horizon," he said, his voice steady. "Defense protocols. Show me the sky." Screens flickered alive. The night blazed with streaks of fire as Dominion gunships descended. The AI spoke calmly. "Threat analysis. 67 hostile craft. Weapons offline." Suggested response. Probability manipulation. Elias's lips tightened. "Do it." The horizon shimmered again. Space rippled around her like heat rising from stone. The first Dominion gunships fired volleys of plasma. Every bolt curved away, glancing harmlessly into the cliffs. Kira gasped as one gunship banked too sharply, its wings colliding with another. They both spiraled down in flames. More fire came. More misses. Some struck their own allies. The canyon, lit with chaos. Kira clutched the edge of the console, golden eyes wide. It's turning their weapons against them. Alias's voice was grim. Not against them, just away from us. But in war, that's enough. The battle raged. Dozens of gunships fell, colliding, misfiring, burning. But the Dominion pressed harder, more waves screaming down from orbit. Horizon's AI intoned, structural integrity failing, hull breaches expanding, probability field holding, but enemy saturation increasing. Kyra's voice cracked. We can't hold forever. Elias's eyes burned. Then we make our first strike count. He slammed a hand on the armrest. Horizon, what weapons are still alive? Silence. Then, one spinal railgun operational. Power cells unstable. Firing may cripple internal systems. Elias's jaw clenched. Risk accepted. Target that cruiser in orbit. Kyra whipped. Toward him, feathers flaring. That's suicide. The ship isn't ready. Neither are they. Elias snapped. The Horizon's ruined hull groaned as ancient systems powered. Energy screamed through fractured conduits, rattling the ship like a beast in chains. The bridge shook violently. Sparks cascaded. Kyra screamed as fire erupted from a console. The AI's voice boomed. Railgun charged. Trajectory aligned. Probability. Shift engaged. Firing. The Horizon roared. From the canyon's depths, a lance of white fire tore into the heavens. The shot was imperfect, broken, but reality itself bent to guide it. The Dominion cruiser above never stood a chance. The railgun slug punched through its shields, its hull, its heart. The ship erupted in a blossom of fire, fragments raining across. The sky, for the first time in centuries, the Horizon had killed again. Silence fell across the canyon. The Dominion strike wings faltered mid-dive, their formations breaking. Fear rippled through them. On the bridge, Elias sat breathing hard, the console's glow painting his scarred face. Kira stared at him in shock, her chest heaving. You destroyed a cruiser, she whispered. Elias's gaze was hard, unflinching. No, humanity did. But in orbit, Dominion reinforcements arrived. A fleet of 6 cruisers, flanked by destroyers, emerging from hyperspace like wolves scenting blood. Their formation spread, weapons already arming. On the lead ship's bridge, High Strategist Valeric himself stood, his black armor gleaming, eyes like molten gold. He watched the burning wreck of his cruiser with cold fury. So, he hissed, voice dripping with contempt, the ghost ship lives. He leaned forward, claws tapping the command rail. Signal the galaxy. Humanity is not extinct. They are vermin clinging to a corpse. And I will be the one to finish the purge. His fangs glinted as he spoke the final words. Bring me the Horizon. Asterisk the enemy's face-high strategist Valeric of the Dominion stood at the viewport of his flagship, the Scourge of Suns. Behind him, the galaxy's most feared officers watched. In silence, waiting for his judgment. Before them floated the wreckage of a Dominion cruiser, his cruiser split open like a carcass, fire still burning in vacuum. Beyond it, deep in the atmosphere of Taraxis 4, sensors showed the impossible readings. A human quantum signature. Valeric's claws clicked against the steel rail. His voice, when it came, was low, deadly calm. So the human plague festers still. An officer bowed low. Strategist, reports confirm it. The signature matches fragments from the warship known as Horizon. It should not exist. Valric cut him off with a growl. It should not exist, yet there it is, tearing holes in my fleet. The Council promised me humanity was dust, lies, weakness. He turned, golden eyes blazing. Do you know why the galaxy united to erase them? No one answered. The silence was fear itself. Valric's voice rose, echoing through the command chamber. Because they would never kneel. Every world kneels. Every species adapts to the Dominion, obeys, survives. But humans? They bled. They burned. They lost. Everything and still, they fought. That is why they had to be erased. He leaned close to his officers, fangs glinting. And that is why I will finish the purge myself. I will drag their cursed warship into the light and break it before all the galaxy. Asterisk the trap back on Taraxis 4, Elias and Kyra worked feverishly within the horizon. The stabilizer core pulsed steadily now, but much remained broken. Power conduits still sputtered. Weapons were scarce. Engines remained offline. Kyra slammed the panel shut, feathers streaked with grease and ash. We can't fight a fleet, Elias. Even with your probability magic, we're 2 against thousands. Elias wiped sweat from his brow, his face grim. We don't have to fight all of them. We just have to show them. Asterisk Kyra narrowed her eyes. Show them what? That humanity isn't gone, that we're not afraid, that no matter what they throw at us, we endure. Before Kira could reply, the AI spoke, voice cold and precise. Asterisk. Warning. Dominion fleet entering high orbit. Multiple capital class signatures. Probability outcomes declining. Recommend immediate relocation. Kyra hissed softly. They're coming. Elias's jaw clenched. Then let them come. Valric's plan was simple, brutal, and elegant. He deployed 6 cruisers into a net formation, surrounding the canyon from orbit. Destroyers filled the gaps, sealing every exit. Swarms of strike wings plunged into atmosphere, hurting the horizon upward. Himself stood at the helm, watching every move, every reading. His lips curled into a cruel smile. The quantum lock bends probability, yes, but probability bends only so far. Surround the beast, choke it, starve it. No miracle can last forever. The canyon battle horizon roared as Elias forced her battered. Engines to life. Flames belched from fractured thrusters, shaking the canyon walls. With a scream of steel, the warship rose from the graveyard that had entombed her for centuries. Kyra stared in awe as the ground fell away. She flies. Elias gripped the armrest of the captain's chair, his voice hard. She fights. The first wave hit. Dominion gunships screamed down in tight formation, weapons blazing. Plasma tore through the sky, only to veer at the last second, skimming harmlessly past Horizon's hull. The warship shimmered, quantum-locked, untouchable, but the Dominion did not break. It pressed closer, weapons overlapping, probability field straining under sheer volume. The AI's voice was calm, almost indifferent, quantum stress levels rising. Failure projected at 68% saturation. Kyra's feathers bristled. They're overwhelming us. Elias bared his teeth. Not yet. The horizon twisted probability like a living storm. Enemy fire bent away, colliding with all eyes. Gunships spiraled into each other. Destroyers in orbit miscalculated their own shots, striking their escorts. Instead, yet for every enemy destroyed by chance, more came. The fleet tightened its noose. The canyon filled with fire. On the scourge of suns, Valric leaned forward, eyes blazing. Yes, struggle. Twist your cursed fate. But even fate breaks when crushed from all sides. He raised a claw, signaling. Prepare the gravitic snare. The snare back on the horizon's bridge. Alarms shrieked. The AI's voice cut sharp. Warning. Enemy deploying gravitic suppression field. Quantum lock destabilizing. Elias's stomach dropped. They've studied us. Kyra's voice shook. What does that mean? It means, Elias said, voice low, they've built a trap for us, and it's closing. On sensors, Dominion destroyers projected a lattice of gravitic beams, crossing space like chains of light. The horizon shuddered as the field wrapped around her, dragging, twisting. Probability faltered. For the first time, enemy fire grazed her hull, tearing scars in her steel. Kyra gripped his arm. Elias, we can't hold. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Fires lit the bridge. The AI's voice, for the first time, carried strain. Quantum field integrity, failing. And for a heartbeat, Elias felt it again, the helplessness of the last war, the betrayal. His crew screaming as the horizon fell. Humanity burning while the galaxy cheered. Not again, his fists clenched. His voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Not again. He rose from the chair, eyes blazing with fury, and shouted, Horizon! Override safety protocols. If they want to snare us, then bend the chain until it breaks. The ship shuddered. Lights flared. The air trembled with a sound like cracking stone. The AI's voice dropped to a whisper. Warning. Such a maneuver risks catastrophic collapse of reality probability fields. Elias's eyes narrowed. Do it anyway. On the Dominion flagship, Valric's smile widened as the horizon thrashed in his snare. Yes, break, shatter. Humanity ends here. But then sensors screamed. Probability spikes surged off the charts. The lattice holding the horizon began to fracture, bending in directions that made no sense. Beams twisted, looping back, colliding. With their own emitters, destroyers exploded. Chains of light snapped. The horizon blazed free, engines screaming, quantum fields burning brighter than ever. On the bridge, Kira gasped, feathers standing on end. You did it. You broke their trap. Elias's chest heaved, eyes wild. No, humanity did? Valric's smile was gone, his fangs bared. Impossible. But it was real. The last human warship had shattered his perfect trap, and now Elias turned his gaze upward, toward the fleet. Toward Valric himself. Horizon, he said coldly. Set a course. Time to remind the galaxy what happens when you try to chain humanity. The price of war the horizon tore through the sky like a scar of fire. Rising from Taraxis 4 into the teeth of the Dominion fleet dot around her, probability bent in impossible arcs. Enemy missiles looped backward, plasma beams curved into void, entire wings of strike craft crashed into each other in midair. To the Dominion, it was madness. To Horizon, it was survival. But even survival had a cost. Inside the bridge, sparks rained. The air stank of ozone and burning metal. Screens flickered, showing damage climbing past safe thresholds. Quantum stress indicators pulsed blood red. The AI's voice, usually calm, was ragged now, as though strained by the very act of speaking. Warning, hull integrity at 32%. Probability fields degrading. Failure is inevitable without disengagement. Kira's talons dug into the armrest, her feathers pressed flat against her skull. Elias, we can't keep this up. They'll tear us apart piece by piece. Elias's knuckles were white on the command chair. His gaze locked on the flagship. Hanging above them, the scourge of suns, the ship of the monster who wanted humanity erased from history. No, Elias whispered, voice raw. Not this time. We take the fight to him. Dominion command on the scourge of suns. High strategist Valric leaned forward, his smile sharpened to a blade's edge. Good, he growled. Bleed. Show me the desperation that made your kind. Dangerous. The more you struggle, the sweeter your end. His officers watched as the horizon, blazing like a wounded predator, clawed her way toward them. "She cannot last," said his second-in-command. "Already her fields collapse." Another. "Strike, and she will die." Valric's claws tapped the rail in rhythm. "No, she will not simply die. She will kneel. I will chain her broken body and display it across the stars." Asterisk breaking point horizons surged upward, but every meter cost blood. Enemy destroyers cut. Close, their beams licking across her hull. Probability faltered under sheer saturation. Plates buckled. Fires erupted. Kira screamed as the ship lurched violently. A panel burst beside her, searing her feathers. Elias leapt to shield her from falling debris, taking a cut across his arm. The AI's voice was tight, urgent. Quantum field collapse imminent in 5 minutes. Catastrophic outcome approaching. Elias staggered back to the chair, blood running down his arm. His voice was hoarse, defiant. "Then we use those 5 minutes to carve history into their bones." Kira turned to him, eyes wide and terrified. "Elias, you'll kill us both. You'll kill yourself." He met her gaze, something broken and fierce burning in his eyes. "Kyra, I already died once. This ship is all I have left. Humanity deserves to be remembered, even if it's only as fire in the dark." The choice on the screens, the Dominion fleet shifted. The scourge of suns moved to the center, shielded by cruisers, daring horizon to try. Elias felt the weight of it, millions of lives aboard that fleet. Soldiers who had never seen a human before. Officers raised on lies that humanity was a disease. He could slaughter them. Horizon could twist probability and turn their own weapons into knives against them. He could make this fleet vanish in flame, and part of him wanted it. The ghosts of Earth screamed for vengeance in his chest. The burned cities, the silenced voices, his family, his crew. But then Kyra's hand gripped his wrist, firm and trembling. Her voice was soft, breaking. "If you do this, if you kill them all, you'll prove Valric right. You'll prove the galaxy right about you, about humans." Elias froze. Asterisk, her eyes were wide, wet with pain. "You told me humanity wasn't just rage, that it was compassion, hope. If you turn this ship into a weapon of slaughter, you'll bury that hope forever." Sacrifice the ship shuddered, hull cracking. Time was nearly gone. Elias's hands trembled over the console. Rage burned, grief howled. But beneath it all, a fragile ember glowed Kyra's words, the last thread tying him to what humanity had been. He closed his eyes. He saw Earth's sky. He saw his crew smiling before the end. He heard laughter, not screams. Asterisk, when he opened them again, his voice was steady. Horizon, reroute power from weapons to junk core. Plot a probability fold straight through their net. We're not here to kill them. We're here to show them. Kyra's breath caught. Relief and terror warred in her eyes. I hesitated. Then, acknowledged. Warning, probability of survival less than 8%. Elias grinned bitterly. That's 8% more than zero. Do it. The leap outside, the Dominion fleet closed in for the kill. Beams crisscrossed. The gravitic net reignited. Valric's voice thundered across the command chamber. Now, end them. But the horizon burned brighter. Her hull cracked and bled fire, yet her core roared with impossible light. Elias stood tall on the bridge, voice commanding, resolute. Engage the fold, reality screamed. Space tore like fabric. Horizon vanished in a blaze of quantum fire ripping free from the trap, threading a needle through the impossible. Asterisk. Enemy shots passed harmlessly through empty space. The Dominion fleet staggered, disoriented, as sensors failed to explain what had just happened. On the scourge of suns, Valric's claws dug into steel until blood dripped. His roar shook the chamber. Find them. I will not be defied by a dead race. Aftermath in the silence after the fold. Horizon floated broken, but alive in the void between stars. Elias collapsed into his chair, breathing hard, bloodied but smiling faintly. Kira leaned against him, trembling, her feathers damp with tears. Had survived. They had escaped, but Elias knew the truth. This was only the beginning. The galaxy now knew humanity still existed, that the last warship still fought, and the Dominion Valric would stop at nothing to hunt them down. Asterisk. The last stand for 3 days. The horizon drifted in the void between stars. Her hull was cracked. Her quantum engines pulsed faintly, bleeding. Energy. The air recycling tasted of copper and smoke. Every corridor bore scars of fire, and yet she lived. Elias sat on the bridge, his arm bound in rough bandages. His face was drawn, eyes shadowed with exhaustion. He stared at the dark beyond, listening to the creaks of his ship. Kira limped in, feathers still singed. She set down a tray of rations beside him. You need to eat, she said softly. He didn't move. Kira sat across from him, studying his hollow eyes. You did it, Elias. You spared them. You showed them what humanity really is. Elias's laugh was bitter. All I showed them is that I can run. Valric won't stop. You know that. Kyra's feathers rippled uneasily. Then, what do we do? The AI's voice cut in, steady but grim. Long-range scans detect Dominion pursuit. The Scourge of Suns leads the fleet. Estimated arrival, 20 hours. Kyra's heart sank. Elias only closed his eyes. It was always going to end like this. Choice of legacy later, Elias walked alone into the heart of the horizon. The quantum core glowed dimly, flickering like a dying star. He placed his hand against its surface, feeling the thrum of infinite possibility straining against collapse. Horizon, he whispered, tell me the truth. How long can you keep fighting? The AI's voice was quiet, almost sorrowful. In current condition, one final engagement. After that, probability matrix collapse is irreversible. I will not survive. Elias's chest tightened. The horizon wasn't just a ship. She was his last companion, his last tether to home. But he had known this moment would come. Kyra's voice echoed faintly behind him. She had followed. Elias? If we face them again, we die, both of us. He turned, eyes hard but burning with something more than despair. Not just us, Valric, the Dominion. The lies. It all ends here. Horizon isn't just a warship. She's a message. Humanity's last word. The final battle, the Dominion fleet emerged from fold space like a wall of fire. Hundreds of warships. And at their heart, vast and terrible, the Scourge of Suns. Valric stood at his command dais, eyes ablaze. There, the last human. End this mockery once and for all. The horizon met them in the black, broken, wounded, alone. Yet as she turned, her battered hull toward the fleet, light began to gather around her core. Probability sang. Space shivered. Elias stood tall on the bridge, blood still staining his bandages, eyes blazing with unyielding fire. Kira, strap in. Horizon, for one last dance. The ship answered with a roar of light. Fire and light. The Dominion Armada unleashed everything: missiles, beams, singularity warheads. But Horizon was quantum locked. Even broken, even dying, she was untouchable in her fury. Missiles curved back upon their launchers. Warheads detonated among escorts. Destroyers collided as probability betrayed them. The horizon cut through the storm, leaving trails of shattered wreckage. Every moment cost her more, but still she pressed on, carving a path straight for the Scourge of Suns. Kira clutched her console, eyes wide, tears streaming. "You're going to kill us both." Elias's voice was steady, almost calm. "No, Kyra, we're going to end him. And maybe, just maybe, we'll give the galaxy a chance to choose something better." Duel of Titans at last, the horizon faced the scourge of suns. Valric's voice thundered across the void. "You cannot win, human. You are a ghost. A mistake. A disease long purged." Elias stood tall, eyes burning. "No, Valric, I'm the reminder that you can't kill hope, that even the smallest ember still burns." With a scream of tearing probability, Horizon rammed straight into the flagship's shields. The clash lit the void like a supernova. Horizon's fields shredded Valric's defenses, twisting them against him. The scourge of suns cracked, fires spilling across her hull. Valric roared in rage, refusing to yield. "If I fall, I'll drag you with me." Elias whispered to his ship, voice breaking. "Horizon, one last fold. Take him with us." The AI's voice was soft, almost human. Acknowledged. "Goodbye, Elias." Sacrifice light consumed the bridge. Probability surged beyond control, folding space into itself. Kira screamed, reaching for Elias. He gripped her hand, holding tight. Refusing to let go. The horizon became a star. She collapsed into herself, dragging the scourge of suns into the fold. Valric's screams vanished into the void as both ships were torn from reality in a blaze of impossible light, and then silence. The Dominion fleet scattered, terrified. For the first time in centuries, they had seen something stronger than fear. Epilogue weeks. Later, whispers spread across the galaxy that the last human warship had faced the Dominion alone and won. That their high strategist had been swallowed by his own arrogance. Across alien worlds, oppressed voices found courage. Resistance movements rose, and in hushed tones they spoke of humanity not as monsters, but as saviors. Kira drifted in a small escape pod, rescued by rebels days after the battle. She often looked to the stars, clutching the fragment of Elias's bandage she had kept. "They'll remember you," she whispered into the night. "Not as a ghost, not as a monster, but as the spark that lit the fire." And somewhere, beyond, the edges of probability, the echo of Elias's laughter lingered in the stars.